This is a video from the series Hinduism in 100 videos, where we explore various aspects of Hinduism in under 6 minutes. In this video, we'll look at the Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and try to understand what they do and why it is important that they exist. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe so that you never miss an upload. The word Trimurti means 3 forms. And traditionally, these 3 forms are the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. Let's look at them one by one. First up, the creator, Brahma. He's shown with 4 heads, 4 arms, and sits on a lotus. Why does he have 4 heads? Each head represents a different stage in the life of every living being. The first head represents the unborn. The second head represents the stage when you are yet to be born. The third head is you, as you live your life on earth, and the fourth head is you as an old person nearing death. So Brahma represents all stages in the life of a living being. He's also shown with 4 arms, each holding a different object. The blue-colored lotus represents water, the white-colored arrow represents time, the red-colored pot represents power, and the green-colored book represents virtue. All 4 of these are needed for creation to take place. Finally, he sits on a lotus, which symbolizes spiritual evolution. Sitting on a lotus also signifies purity, enlightenment, and detachment. Next, the preserver, Vishnu. Vishnu is shown with 4 arms and typically has a blue or dark complexion. His hands carry various objects like a conch shell, a mace, a disc, and a lotus. Conch shell represents sound, which is the first step in creation. The mace represents strength, the disc represents intellect, and the lotus represents meditation or peace. Interestingly, many Hindus believe that Lord Vishnu is currently in his 4th avatara, called the Dwapara Yuga avatar. But how many avatars are there in total? According to some ancient texts, there are 22 avatars of Vishnu, and interestingly, some texts also mention avatars of Brahma and Shiva. This painting shows some of the avatars of Vishnu. Do you know which avatars these are? Comment below and let me know. I'll wait. Now, coming back to our painting, Vishnu stands on a giant serpent, which symbolizes his ability to control primal instincts and emotions. Next, we have the destroyer, Shiva. Shiva is shown with a 3rd eye on his forehead, a snake around his neck, and he holds a trident. The 3rd eye on his forehead represents wisdom and power. When it opens, it brings enlightenment and knowledge. The snake around his neck represents Kundalini energy, which lies dormant at the base of the spine of every human being. It is said that when this energy rises through the various chakras, one achieves enlightenment. Finally, the trident represents the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Let's quickly look at what these are. Sattva represents goodness, rajas represents passion or action, and tamas represents darkness or ignorance. When these 3 gunas are in balance, one lives a peaceful and harmonious life. When there is too much rajas, one becomes overactive and stressed, and when there is too much tamas, one becomes lazy and dull. So we just looked at the basic duties of these 3 deities. Now, what's the need for all this? Is it really necessary for the universe to be created, then preserved and destroyed? What's the point? If you ask any Hindu, he or she will say the world is full of pain and suffering, and it would be better if the whole thing was destroyed. Right? Well, that's exactly what Shiva is constantly trying to do. But no, it cannot be destroyed because as long as there is even a trace of virtue in the world, as long as there is at least one righteous person in the world, Vishnu has to preserve it. And that's not all. For creation to happen, there must be a reason. There must be a cause. And that cause is none other than Brahma. That's why these 3 deities work together. Let's now look at an analogy that explains how these 3 deities work together. Imagine an artist who creates a beautiful painting. Once the painting is done, he puts it up for display. Later, he goes to a museum to see how people respond to his painting. Some people like it and some don't. Certain critics might also come and share their feedback about the painting. They might point out certain flaws in the painting. Even after listening to all this feedback, the artist feels that overall his painting has been a success. But one day the museum decides to get rid of the painting. Just as the artist did not create the museum, he cannot control what happens to his painting once it leaves his hands. In this case, the artist represents Brahma, the creator. The painting represents the universe. People who appreciate the painting represent those who attain liberation or moksha. Critics who point out flaws in the painting represent those who attain knowledge about the painting. They could be saints or sages who attain knowledge about the universe, but who still have to live their lives and continue to be reborn. Museum officials who decide to discard the painting represent Shiva, the destroyer. And finally, the painting going on display represents Vishnu, the preserver. Now, most people think that these three deities are separate, right? But that's not true. These three deities are actually one, and the Vedas call this one supreme reality Brahman. To understand what this means, let's look at this example. You have a pot in your house, right? You might think that the pot is separate from the clay that it is made of, from the artisan who made it, and from the person who uses the pot. But in reality, the pot cannot exist without clay. Without an artisan, the pot cannot be made. And without a user, the pot has no meaning. Similarly, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are not separate. They are all different aspects of the same reality, and reality cannot exist without these three. There's another very important point here. Some people think that since Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are all one, they all must be equal, right? Well, yes and no. Yes, they are all one. But no, they are not equal because they all have different duties. Therefore, they all cannot be equal. Remember, the concept of God is greater than the concepts of duty, form, and attributes. Here, duty refers to what you have to do. Form refers to the physical body or the appearance, and attributes refer to the powers and boons that you possess. So if you think about it, if Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva were to suddenly become equal, then the universe could fall into disarray. It could fall into imbalance. For instance, if Brahma stops creating the universe, or if Vishnu stops preserving the universe, or if Shiva stops destroying the universe, then the universe could fall into imbalance. Finally, remember this: everything in this world is impermanent. Everything is constantly changing, and even the great deities like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are not spared. The universe is impermanent, and so are all its parts. Even the concept of Trimurti, the creator, preserver, and destroyer, is also impermanent. So is this idea of Trimurti all there is to Hinduism? Well, no, absolutely not. This is just one concept in Hinduism, and it is called as one of the Panchayatana Puja, which literally means 5 objects of worship. The other 4 are the world, mind, intellect, and ego. We have detailed videos on all of these. Make sure to check them out. That was it for today. Also, don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an upload. Thanks a lot for watching.